All right, so we're welcoming Tom McCarthy, voice of my childhood. I actually said that to Leslie Goodell when she was on not too long ago. Leslie and I worked together, and Leslie's like, "Oh well, people used to say it's better than I fall asleep to your voice." I was like, "Oh, okay."
I used to
So
get
look,
that all the time, man. I used to get that all the time.
yeah, the
That's
Phillies
okay
rerun.
though. That's okay though. When I was doing radio on TV though, I kind of feel like, well, you're supposed to be watching it.
Yeah, right. I mean, definitely. Like I would fall asleep maybe to a Phillies rerun back in the
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
I had them on all the time. I'll be honest, Tom. I'm hurting nowadays, man. We were spoiled. I was in the prime of my fandom. I was in high school and 08, 09, right? The heyday of just talent, premier pitching, coaching. I don't even know what question to ask, but it's just not the same as it was.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I remember, looking at Wheels at one point and saying, "Man, this is pretty sweet." He goes, "Hey, enjoy it. It doesn't last this long. It's fleeting." And I was like, "Oh no, man, we're gonna be in the postseason every year." And then because we were, um, and it's you know what you realize? You realize that it's really cool to get free agents. I mean, it's great to have Bryce Harper. It's great to have JT Realmuto. But the homegrown guys are really where your foundation piece is. Ryan Howard, Chase Utley, Jimmy Rollins. I know Shane started with a different organization, but I kind of look at him as a Phillies guy. But Cole Hamels, Ryan Matson. I mean, you need to have those guys in order to be successful. I mean, we were
Jason Worth.
Well, I mean, but Jason's like that added boost because he was an Orioles guy, and
Was he an Orioles guy? Okay, see,
yeah,
that's bad knowledge out of me.
But Pat Gillick knew him because he drafted him. And he thought, you know what, this guy could fit in as a platoon guy. And then you get lucky and he turns into just this unbelievable talent. You got to have a little luck. You know that. I mean, but
Yeah.
the homegrown stuff is where you really need it. We have some of it. We just don't have all of it right now. We have Aaron Nola. We have Reese Hoskins. We have people like that, but we don't have Ryan Howard, Jimmy Rollins, Cole Hamels, that type of thing. And that's where it starts. I mean, that's where it starts. It starts in the farm system.
We'll talk about this and then we'll get into you. But is Jimmy Rollins the most underappreciated Philly sports athlete?
We
I
had a
think he is.
conversation. We literally had this conversation yesterday about is he a Hall of Famer? And I think he's trending to being a Hall of Famer. And I say that because Barry Larkin's in the Hall of Fame. Now, Barry Larkin did win a few more honors. There's no doubt he was an all-star more often. I think he won more gold gloves, but all the other numbers are very similar. So I think Jimmy, if I'm MLB, when he is eligible and you have an opportunity to put him in, you can't. I mean, you obviously can't sit there and campaign, but I think if he goes in, it changes his life for the rest of his life, signing HOF. But for Major League Baseball to have that personality, I think we appreciate him, Colin, in Philadelphia. I really do. But I don't think that people outside appreciate him the way he should be appreciated. I mean, I'm fortunate because those guys have remained my friends. They've been really good to my kids, which is awesome. And I just think I love having him around the booth because he's around the booth every once in a while now. In fact, he's doing this weekend's games on Peacock. I think around baseball, I think he's underappreciated. I think that whole team in a lot of ways is underappreciated. I mean, I think everybody loves Chase Utley because of the way he plays, but I think that, Jimmy and Ryan and guys like that are underappreciated.
Yeah. Some great teams, some great pitching,
Great pitch.
unreal pitching. There was a point of time where we watched every game, right? Just like a Phillies fan turns on the Eagles game. We watched every game that way.
And it was packed at the ballpark too.
What an atmosphere. And Citizens Bank Park is incredible. I'll never forget this. My fiance, Sydney's family, wife to be next week. They are LSU fans, or dad went to LSU. So Aaron Nola was like a big signing. It's like, Aaron Nola, I watched him, he's a Philly now. So we went to a game. We went to, I think, his first start. It was, I believe, a day game. I'm sure you called it. And there was nobody there. And I was trying to explain this. Yeah. And I was trying to explain to Sydney, I'm like, Sydney, this is one of the greatest atmospheres I've ever been in. I think I was there. I mean, regular season, unreal. Now, playoffs, obviously great. I was there for the World Series game 2 against the Rays. I was top level. the seat right above home plate, and it was incredible. I'll never forget it. I'm like, Sydney, this is the most electric atmosphere for baseball, and it's a shame it's not the way it used to be. But but people are coming in. It seems like it's getting, what's the vibe around the stadium? You're there.
That Yankee series was unbelievable. That was like the old days. I mean, 38,000. I mean, there were some seats still available, but that was like the old days. I mean, there were a lot of Yankee fans, so there were chanting going back and forth, but that's good.
That's great.
Somebody said to me on social media, they said, you do realize it was half Yankees. I was like, yeah, who cares? It was just an atmosphere. I mean, it was, and in this day and age, that's what it's all about. Is that I remember when I did the Ravens and the Bills playoff game this past year up in Orchard Park, they had 7,000 and it felt like 77,000. I mean, they had the interception return for a touchdown for 102 yards and the stadium was shaking. And it's like, wow, you can feel the impact. You just, not that we forget about it, but I guess we forget about it. But this weekend when the Yankees were in town was unbelievable. And I agree with you. I'm not objective at all when it comes to ballparks. I mean, people ask me top 5 and I say, well, Wrigley, Fenway, 1, 2, San Francisco, PNC. I said, and Citizens Bank Park's in the top 5. And they're like, oh, well, you're there every day. I said, I'm telling you, it's in the top 5. When it's packed and everything's there and atmosphere, it is everything you want in a ballpark. Food, atmosphere, people, sounds, smells, the whole thing.
It really a fantastic place. Some of my fondest memories, standing room only tickets with my dad.
Yeah.
Driving up and just going to a game as soon as they have tickets.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. I'll never forget it. And it's something that him and I have always valued. And even my brother is not a big sports fan. We're going to the game and he enjoyed it. So it's fond memories for me. Something about the Phillies a little bit different than other sports and other sports sounds in sports teams in Philadelphia. I think it's just, I don't know. I'm saying baseball is more of a family thing. That's the way I look at it.
I would agree with that. As well as I do. I think football has this attraction to it. If you have season tickets, if it's in the family, people are like, oh, we're going to tailgate, we're going to do all that kind of thing. It's once a week. But for baseball, the family part of it is going, but it's also sitting and watching as a family every day. And it's in and out. You can come in, you watch the game for 3 innings, you leave, come back and watch the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning, that type of thing. So I agree with that. I felt the same way growing up. I mean, it was the same way with us. I mean, the games were always on. My dad grew up a Jets fan, so he was so annoyed by them. So when they were on, it was a totally different animal when he was watching those games.
You mentioned social media, and you're a great follow. You interact with all your fans.
I try.
think it's tremendous. Talk about that. Your approach to that.
Well, my approach to it is that I won't break news or anything like that because I don't know if that's my cup of tea. But I will answer questions. I mean, I want people to know that who I am on the air is exactly who I am right now with you, or just in general. If you see me out at Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, I'm just a dad, who's been fortunate enough to be part of something that I've wanted to be part of, sports, my whole life. I'm a failed college athlete who, went to college to play baseball and didn't, and just needed to stay in sports. So I know how important it was for me when I was a kid and used to try to interact with whoever it is, Ernie Harwell, Bob Murphy, Harry Kalas, all those guys. So when people interact with me, there's stuff that I just like discard when it's out there because I know that it's random. Every once in a while, I will go back at people if there's something that I'm,
that's in play. I think that's my favorite thing is like, okay, this is free reign.
Well, that's how I feel. And I really do not try to be, I truly do not try to be a jerk or anything like that. But I want to, it's hard to be funny. You can't just be funny. You can't script funny, I don't think. That's why some of the great writers are so good. But if I have a general feeling where I can be myself, sometimes when I answer it exactly how I would answer it if you and I were talking.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get that with 140 characters, but I do like to answer questions. I do like to answer them if I can, just to kind of let people know that I'm just a normal dude. I'm just like you or me, you or the guy next door. That's part of it. I didn't go into it kicking and screaming. I just went into it not really understanding it all. I like Instagram because I like just sending photos out, but I do like interacting with people, on Twitter within reason. Like I do it during games only in between innings but I very rarely do it when I'm doing football games because it's so intense, or college basketball games because there's not as much time. But baseball, there just seems to be time in between innings that I can do it. So I try to answer as many as I can.
It's interesting. So you're interacting with fans. Obviously, you get paid to do it. You're on TV.
Yeah.
Right? You've done play-by-play on the radio, and now you're interacting with them with social media. We always discuss what's the future in sports, what's the future in broadcasting. What are your thoughts on it? Do you see it being a completely different thing? Do you see people's attentions getting shorter? That's an obvious statement. I think everyone would say yes.
Yeah.
But there's more interaction now, right? My attention's shorter. I'm going to watch the game, but I'm also going to tweet it, Tom.
Yeah.
I'm also going to tweet at Chase Utley or tweet at Reese Hoskins or tweet at whomever. Where do you see it going? Or what are some of the interactions that you've had that may make you think the way you do now?
Well, I think that everything that we're doing, like what we're doing now is, I did several of them today that were fan sort of Zooms, and that stuff's going to keep getting broader and broader, I think, as we go forward. And I think we're going to see more, not strictly streaming, but just more streaming of games. With the NFL, it's Amazon. With us, we're on Peacock this weekend, which if you have Xfinity, you have Peacock. So it's easy to, I don't want to say it's easy because I know that we have one TV in our house that's a smart TV, and it's still, the kids are fine with it. But me and my wife sit there sometimes, we're like, well, how do I get to this? But you get used to it after a while.
But we're the next group. We're the next, people that are going to pay those bills.
That's exactly
hopefully
it.
for you. But yeah,
that's exactly it. That's exactly it. So I think that the streaming part of it's going to get broader. I think interaction. So you have to be careful with it, because I do think that if there's not a name attached to a Twitter account or an Instagram account, it's hard for me to take them seriously. I also look at it sometimes as it's beer muscles with a lot of these folks. And I have to realize that sometimes when I go back at them, that if I was in a bar when I'm in college and I have a few too many drinks, your chest is out a little bit more thinking, I can take care of this guy. And that's sort of the same thing with social media. So that's why I don't let it affect me at all. I kind of just let it go into the atmosphere. But I think it's going to be more vast. I mean, whether it be Q&A, whether it be videos that people send in asking questions or commenting, I think there's going to be more of that. I don't know how they're going to do it or how folks will do it, but I do think there's going to be more of that. And I think listen, if you can walk and watch a game or listen to a game on a phone, I mean, I watch my son's independent league games on my phone all the time. I just sit there and I'm like this, or I listen to it with my earphones in. I think that's going to become more and more prevalent. It's already there, but I think it's going to be deeper as we get, move along.
I think they're going to be, you bring up some tremendous points. I think one thing that jumps into my mind from just my experience with doing some radio is when I work with Tony Bruno, Tony had his Twitch stream up. So we would do the radio at 97.3 ESPN South Jersey. We talk Eagles, we talk whatever we were doing. And Tony would be addressing the radio and the Twitch stream. And then when we go on break, we would talk to the Twitch stream. And the Twitch people we'd be able to curse. They'd be able to hear real talking. Right. And like, I would never, because I'm like snapped in, as I'm sure you are, you snap into your role, but it was unique. I'm like, this is interesting. And then now you notice if you watch golf or you watch another sport, when you do Phillies games, they'll have the actual screen, like 2 zooms up. They'll have the ballpark, just a broad view of it. And then they'll have a commercial. So it looks like the game's still on, but the commercial is paired with it. So I just see down the line, okay, now we're going to just, we're not going to commercial break, folks. We're here. We're going to talk about this. We're going to invite Colin Thompson in. He's going to talk about the first quarter, what happened. And while I'm talking, I'm wearing a Nissan Ultimate hat. I'm wearing, so I don't know.
I think there's truth to that. I think there's truth. And I also think, I don't know how you feel about this as an athlete, but I do think that the miking up of players, if it can be done, I don't want to say safely because I guess safely, but within reason, where you trust that I'm not going to put anything out there that's going to make you look bad. I think that could be happening more and more. I was extremely entertained with when Bryce Harper wore the earpiece on, I don't know if it was Fox or ESPN last year, where he lost the earpiece and found it like 3 innings later. I thought that was the funniest thing in the world. Or when Anthony Rizzo was running after Freddie Freeman, and he was saying, Frederick, I'm coming to get you, as he's running, and they're broadcasting that. I think stuff like that would be awesome to put on. But I also know you guys got a job to do. You're going to be sitting there blocking some 300-pound dude, and sweat's going to be flying everywhere, and they're going to be saying stuff, and we want to mic you up. That's not the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, it's really challenging. It's a great point. So when I was in the XFL, the first game, the XFL just pretty much said, screw it with everything. They're like, we are going max out, and then we're going to pull back the reins and just figure it out. So the first game, I think it was Seattle, DC, at DC, which was a sold out place. It was great. The XFL was amazing. Perfect for small soccer arenas. Like if we played at the Union and Philly had a team.
Oh yeah.
Would have been perfect. So the guys were just letting it rip and like F-bombs on live TV. And I was like, great, right? For like that XFL fan base is awesome. It's great for social media, so it's the argument of like, are we just going to become less censored as a
that is interesting. I actually think we're becoming more censored, and
absolutely.
And I because I think once you open it up to a broader vocabulary, then it's going to take time for a generation to be accepting of that, if that makes any sense. So
absolutely.
You may lose people, and you don't want to do that. You want to bring more people in. But I think it can be done in a sort of tasteful way, and where you as the athlete and me as the broadcaster can sort of interact in some way, shape, or form. That's why, I'd love to get back onto the field more often, whether it be when I do a CBS game and I can go to your practices on Friday, or we have these meetings on Saturday, these meetings with the players, because I want to be more involved in that, to let them know my face, let them see my face, let them hear my voice, that type of thing. Because now, if I have something, I just text the guys, because we don't have any interaction. Well, we're starting to at home, but not on the road. So
yeah. Well, I'll dive into how we met. So I was with the practice squad. I was on the practice squad with the Bears. It's 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Christmas Eve.
Chicago. Eve. That's exactly right.
Chicago Bears versus the Cleveland Browns. It snowed. It was fantastic. It was so cool.
I got home for 10 o'clock mass, by the way, in Jersey that night, which is this. I promised my wife I would do that, but I got home for 10 o'clock mass that night after that game.
That's a huge victory and great work out of you. And the nice thing is you get to wake up Christmas morning and you just worked. And
exactly.
That's cool. That's really cool. But so I'm standing on the sideline, and it's no joke. I've said it on here before. My favorite part of football, I love playing, but the social side of it's really cool to me. It gets to really open it opens some tremendous opportunities for you to meet some great people. So I see you on the sideline. I'm like, that's Tom McCarthy.
That's so funny.
And I didn't know you called football games at the time. So, yeah, I couldn't believe it. And practice ended.
I love doing football. I do. Yeah. I love the animal that it is. I really do. It's
a beast. It's a beast, man. I've called games now. I've done them. I've called and played them. So it's very unique. But yeah, so I'm like, where did Tom go? And they're like, oh, what do you mean? Like, why are you freaking out, bro? I'm like, so cool. I don't know. I'm a big Phillies fan, and I love your work. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go find you. So I just walked up. I walked right up into the meeting. You guys were waiting on who I don't know who started for us that day.
It was probably Mitch at the time.
Mitch, let's see. It could have been at the end of the season. It may have been Mitch, or it could have been Mark.
No, we definitely met with Mitch, but I'm trying to think who else. What's his name? Miller had just gotten hurt.
Who was the big guy? Oh, Mike Glennon.
Mike Glennon was there.
It was Mike Glennon, Mark Sanchez, and Mitch Trubisky. So right. I don't know if John Fox started Mitch at the time. It was John Fox's last year, but I came up, introduced myself. You were so obviously extremely gracious, and
that was Berline and Tasker, right? That was it was Berline and Tasker still, because that was the game. I don't know if you know this or not, but I had to go down, and I don't know why they set me down to the sidelines. We do this like pregame thing for CBS, and I wound up being down on the sidelines. And you remember it was snowing, and they were plowing the fields and stuff like that. Well, the guy doing the snow plow, I don't think he cared, which I thought made it even funnier. I'm explaining the weather, and he comes by with the snowplow, and just I get whipped with snow, like a huge pile of snow. And I still have the clip. It's one of the funniest things in the world. Burline and Tasker are absolutely rolling in the booth, and I'm laughing my ass off down on the sidelines. I mean, it was really, really funny. It was funny.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a cool environment. I love the city of Chicago. I loved playing there. I absolutely love the stadium. Soldier Field is nothing like it. It was really cool. It was really cool. But it's funny how we met, and I want to talk about the NFL a little bit, and then we'll get into some of your stories and journey. So you've been calling football for quite a while now. You said it's a beast. You enjoy it. You called a huge game last year, obviously, in the Bills and the Ravens. Any fond memories covering football that maybe wouldn't happen if you're going to be covering baseball? Not covering, I should say, calling.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the first game I ever did, I did it actually on Fox, not CBS, which was weird because I'd been doing college basketball on CBS, but Fox had been using me for baseball. And it was the Browns and the Lions. And to do that for the first time, was really cool. But to me, the Bills-Titans game on Tuesday night, I thought was sweet this year. But the funny thing is, we have these CBS Blazers, and I have like 7 or 8 of them. I've got them over the years. And I guess I had put on like the Pandemic 30, so I'm trying to put my blazer on. And I said to Jay Feely, I said, can we not button our blazers? Can we sit down and just have them open? He goes, no, we got to button them. Got to look big, look strong. I said, well, I'm going to look big. And I could not button my blazer. So that actually started me to lose. I've dropped like 80 pounds since then because I couldn't button my blazer anymore. But that game was probably, I've done a bunch of games on radio, Colin, that were unbelievable. I did the 49ers Packers game. Colin Kaepernick ran all over the place with the Packers, wound up winning that game with Rod Woodson. I did a bunch of games in London, which I think going to London doing the NFL is just an unbelievable experience. I don't know how the players always feel about it, but it's really cool to do those games. But the Bills-Titans game was cool because it was the only thing on that night. I had been doing football for so long, but I'm in the 7th crew for CBS because of my baseball responsibilities. I can't go any higher than that. But this was, we were on the national stage. I mean, we were right there. And to have the feedback instantaneously that night was like nothing I had ever had before.
Unique because of COVID.
Because of COVID. Yeah. But that was cool. I mean, that was cool to do that and to kind of show versatility because I love doing baseball. I'll always do baseball, but I was brought up doing football, basketball, baseball. And people always say, well, why do you still do all three? I said, because that's what I did. I mean, I don't do as much as I used to, but man, I love being able to go from one sport to the other. I really do. I love it.
That's tremendous. What a talent.
I do love putting that blazer on, the CBS blazer, because as a kid, I used to sit there and watch Pat Summerall and John Madden with that blazer on. And, now I've got 8 of them with all these different CBS logos because they've changed while I've been there. And I think that's the coolest thing. I'm like wearing a CBS blazer. I mean, I don't take any of that lightly.
Tom, I look down at my NFL logo on my jersey and I'm like,
absolutely.
You're wearing an NFL equipment. You're wearing this. I get jacked up for a new long sleeve. Everyone's like, oh, you love. I'm like, yeah.
But even the helmet, like all the helmets, like the fact that you have your Bears one, but even your XFL one, you're like, I have one of these. I don't know.
I kept every jersey last year, and you pay for them. They're not cheap.
Oh, do you really?
I kept every one. Yeah, because they're part of, I understand it. Like some people complain about it. I'm like, no, like they're not ours. Like we didn't pay for these.
Yeah.
I'm keeping a lot of them. So it's not like they take care of us. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I kept every single one because I was inactive the first game. I didn't dress, but I was on the sideline and on the active roster, but did not play. And I was like, I don't know. I was active the next week. We played in Tampa. I'm like, I'm keeping the jersey. And I kept them every game since. And I'll probably do it my whole career. It cost me some money, but
I would. I have my score sheets from like major moments that's what I've decided to start framing.
That's
because
so
that
cool.
to me, like that's the Halladay perfect game. That's the scorecard, and I've got Hamels' no hitter from in Wrigley Field on another wall, and when I did the Mets for 2 years, I have Tom Glavine's 300th win, and they've signed all of them. And I'm not a huge collector. Like I have Chris Coast. That's Chris Coast's catcher's mask, which I did a Zoom with it one time, and he's like this, and I'm like, see anything familiar? He goes, is that my catcher's mask? I said, yeah, it's your catcher's mask. Because he gave it to me from one of my boys one time, but I always have it here. But that's the stuff, I don't know. There's not a lot of stuff that I keep, but that's the stuff I keep. I mean, that's, I've actually started to send guys firsts, like Nick Maton's first hit or Luke Williams' walk-off home run. I sent my scorecard frame to their parents because I don't know. I get more sentimental as I get older, but that's the stuff that that's cool. The jerseys that you have, that's cool. I think that stuff's cool.
How'd you come up with that idea to send it to the parents? That's first class.
I don't know. I guess I thought about just like what would I think would be cool. And I'm not saying that I'm trying to say, hey, you have my score sheet. No. This is what it looks like. I write notes and stuff like that. I just thought that would be kind of neat to send that along.
You talked about notes. What's your preparation like? What's your routine? You're getting ready for a game. Obviously, it's different for football. You have maybe some more time to prep. Baseball, you're so ingrained in it. I found myself when I was more ingrained in football and when I was doing radio on the weekends and then calling Temple football games on the radio, and I was doing a lot of it. I felt I was at my strongest. I feel like if I went a week without doing a game or a week without radio, just explaining myself, my process, I felt I wasn't as strong, or maybe I was, but what's your process? What do you enjoy? Obviously you enjoy different grinds. You're involved in so many different things, basketball as well.
Yeah. So basketball is probably the least worrisome that I ever am as far as preparation goes. I have no idea why. I think it's because we have less players that we have to deal with. So, I actually have books upon books upon books that I've kept all of them. But Kevin Franzen, who does our radio, his former player, he came up with this Excel program that is just blows your mind. So for basketball, he has all my rosters in my Excel sheet, and I just press a button. They load up, stats load up, and things like that. And I just type in notes. Baseball is a daily thing. So every morning, about 2 hours from 10 to 12 or 9 to 11, I just study what happened around the league itself. And I write little notes to myself on my computer. The road games now are tough. Like you and I are talking in the early evening on Wednesday. I'm not leaving for another hour and a half to go do the Dodgers-Phillies game in a studio in Philadelphia. And I don't have the lineups yet. Whereas if I was at Dodger Stadium, I'd have everything done. My book would be done. All my notes would be done. So I've had to try to figure it out a little differently. I just get as much work as I can done early and then just punch everything in as I get ready to go to the ballpark. So I have everything stored. Football, I start usually, find out my assignment, on Sunday night. I start Monday morning and it's just like an ongoing thing. And I have the ability to type things in, but I write everything out for football because I need to get it into memory. And that to me is the most preparation, is doing a football game. It's just constant film watching, constant note taking, reading, and things like that. But I love that part of it. I mean, some of it it's secluded in my office, which is where I am right now. But it's really cool to just kind of prepare. And as I said, I always say it's a totally different animal to do the NFL. So that part of it's cool, the preparation part of it.
Yeah, football is a beast. I called Temple football games on the radio with Paul Palmer and Harry Donahue, and we did on 97.5, and we were all over. It was really cool. I was in and out of the league, or in and out of different leagues I played in, and I was a Manila folder guy. So
were you really?
I would write the Temple offense and notes on the one side, and then flip it, and then the notes defense on the other. I feel like a pro now. Now you're gonna validate it for me, and then I would open it up, and then on the inside it'd be the other team. And then I would stuff my notes in there for the game.
This is my football book. I made this.
Wow.
It's hard for you to see, but this is my book that I use for the NFL and college.
There we go. It looks like a giant calendar at home.
For those like a giant calendar. Yeah. So I made this on Excel. My first CBS game was Stanford BYU like 15 years ago. And it was my first TV game. I've been doing radio at Rutgers and Princeton and stuff like that. And I was totally blown away as far as what my preparation was for that game. And I went back to Cincinnati to do a Phillies game after that. And I sat at a FedEx Kinko's and designed this book because I felt like I was not close to being prepared. And I've used it ever since. And I have a computer program, but it's still better for me to write everything out like you're talking about. But manila folders, I mean, I have my old score sheets when I did Princeton. It was like I put it on a little manila folder. I mean, I designed it on Excel. And everybody's different. I mean, I always like to see how everybody does their things, and everybody's totally different with it. But man, I love that part of it. I love that grind of it.
It made it fun, and then you get to share notes, and for me, it was like competition. I'm like, okay, am I going to have the best intro to the game? And I was a color guy, so it's a little bit different. I'm much different than what you're doing. But you mentioned preparation. You got to work with one of the greatest of all time, and that's Harry Kalas. Mm-hmm. Obviously, no longer with us. What was his preparation like? I know he had a huge personality, and maybe share a story or two.
Well, I'll tell you one thing about Harry's score sheets. First of all, he didn't keep any of them. He always threw them out after the game, which I always thought was amazing because I was like, that was a really good game. You could have kept that one. He wrote.
You're Harry Kalas. You could sell that.
Yeah, exactly. He wrote so small. You know, people look at mine sometimes and they're like, well, how could you read that? And I'm like, well, because it's my handwriting. You could not even see what he wrote. He wrote so tiny, but he saw it all. He saw it all. He was a great, I was so lucky having Harry, Chris Wheeler, and Andy Mustard. Those were the three when I first started. And Larry Anderson, who's still there too, but those are the three mainstays. But Harry was great. When I left for the 2 years to go to the Mets, he was the first person that called me when I got the job because it was a bigger job than what I had in Philadelphia. And then when the Phillies called and asked me to come back to do TV, I was basically brought back to eventually replace Harry when he retired. But we didn't think that was for like 10 years down the road. I signed like a 5-year deal, you know, with an extension for 5 after and all this stuff. And unfortunately, he passed away 2 years after I got back. But he was amazing in the way he made a big call, like a really big call, because he couldn't see all perfectly at the end, but he still hit that big call better than anybody, still to this day. Long drive, the whole thing out of here. It was just, nobody did it better. I was so grateful, Colin, that he called the 08 World Championship. So grateful. No offense to me or Scott Fransky, who's fantastic, or anybody else, but the fact that he called that last out, and I mean, subsequently passed away less than a year later, but the fact that he got that opportunity, man, it made me feel so good. I was standing next to him when he called it. I was pinned up against the wall because the booth was, we had so many cameras in the booth. And that was really neat to see that. But he was great to me from my first day in 2000 when I tried out to, the day he passed away. When I remember the morning vividly, we were in the clubhouse in Washington. He was writing the lineup down. We were both writing the lineup down. He said, all right, T-Mac, if anything changes, because there was an injury, I can't remember who was injured, that they may be taken out of the lineup, that Charlie was going to switch it. If anything changes, just let me know. And I said, okay, Gage, I'll talk to you in a little bit. And then that was it. I never talked to him again. 20 minutes later, we got the call that there was somebody in distress up at the press box. And it was a tough day. We miss him even today. We miss just the moments that he made even better because his voice would lend it to him. And you know what? Football wise, he was unbelievable on football. And when he did the NFL film stuff, Scott Graham does such a great job with the NFL film stuff now. Harry was, we had John Facenda and Harry Kalas, and now Scott, but Harry was so good at doing those NFL films things. Man, incredible voice.
What a legend.
Yeah, incredible voice.
What a legend. And he just a pro. And yeah. I heard some funny stories about him outside, and he likes to have a good time. And
yeah, he did like to have a good time. That's what makes it great. He liked traveling. He loved San Francisco, loved playing the piano and singing in San Francisco, things like that. He was a good man. I'm really lucky that he was part of my life, such a big part of my life for so long.
All right. Well, we'll circle back to your youth, to your childhood. Brick Memorial High School.
Mm-hmm. Golden Mustangs, baby.
That's right. The Golden Mustangs. Dad's a Jets fan. Then you move on to Trenton State.
Yep. Yeah, I went there because my brother was there pitching, and I was like, well, I applied to 7 schools. I was a different major at all 7. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I wanted to play baseball. That's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to play baseball. I wanted to play basketball too. I was planning on playing both at college. I actually had a better basketball senior year than baseball because we won so much. And that winning's fun. You know, we were a 500 team in baseball, but we were really good in basketball. And TCNJ, or Trenton State at the time, was great. The only problem was that I showed up thinking, man, I'm ready to go. I'm going to start right away. I'm going to hit home runs. All this stuff's going to be just like high school. And it wasn't. I got cut in a week and a half. They only kept 2 freshmen. Played the whole summer in the outfield. I was a catcher because the guy wanted me to play the outfield. And I was stunned when I got cut. And I was going to transfer, and then decided, you know what? I'm going to stay. And it was the best thing I ever did, was stay. And I eventually, started writing, and that was a big deal. And then somebody told me I had a good voice. They said, you have a good voice. You should think about doing this for a living. I was like, all right. And I started doing the football games at Trenton State.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. Now, any fond football memories at Trenton State? Now, you go from Trenton State to calling playoff games on CBS.
I used to string I was talking to the old football coach. You would have loved it. You'd love this guy, Eric Hamilton. You would love this guy. He was an old center, All-American, but he was the most successful Division III football coach in a long time. I used to string the wire for the phone because we had to call it on the phone from an AD's office, wherever that was, because nobody did it back then. They didn't do Division III football. I'd have to string it like 100 yards, tape it because then nobody had a long enough cord so it wouldn't separate. And I'd be in the stands on the visiting bleachers calling Kane College against Trenton State College football with the parents around me holding a chart like this, not knowing half the people that were on the field because nobody's rosters were up to date. I'd get $50 a game. And I would also cover the game for the Trenton Times as well. So I'd be doing double duty. So those days, man, those were great. I used to do high school basketball games also. I remember stringing the wire from the AD's office doing a high school basketball game, and I thought I was off the air. And I didn't hear the station anymore. I went, and I wasn't off the air. So that went across the air. I mean, stuff like that, man, it makes you appreciate everything. Like this technology. I mean, if I had this back then, be unbelievable.
It's been huge for us. I mean, literally, it's allowed us to move. I'm able to be anywhere and do this podcast. And I haven't met. I've only know one of my quote unquote employees, our team. I only know we have 4. I only know one of them. I only met one of them in person. And I hired the rest of them, and we're on. We're rolling. I'm very lucky to have awesome people.
That's great.
Trenton Thunder. Okay, so I'm not far from Trenton, where I grew up, Bucks County.
Yep.
And I'm from like Upper Bucks, Middle Bucks. So I'm really 5 minutes from the Delaware River. Trenton Thunder, went to many of games as a child, the quick 30-minute run over and back. And I loved it. I love that park. I still love passing it. I know you have memories there. I see you're involved, with TCNJ. Talk about all that and Trenton Thunder. And, you're in the Trenton Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yeah, well, the Thunder, I mean, it came at the right time because my wife and I were trying to figure out what path I was going to go down. So I was writing at the Trenton Times, doing Trenton State football, doing high school basketball. I was doing a high school sports show every week at this place called Chuck's Sports Cafe, which was awesome. They had great wings. They still have great wings. And I was going to go to the winter meetings to get a play-by-play job doing baseball. And all of a sudden, I heard that there was a minor league team coming to Trenton. I was like, well, I got to get that job. And I just was fortunate enough to be one of the first people hired as the PR guy and the radio guy. Changed my life. Totally changed my life. It was November of 93. First year was 94. It was 4 of us as the first front office. Still some of my closest friends. Talked to 3 of them today that were part of that first front office. One of them's still there. He's the one that runs the dogs. The dogs go and pick up the bat. He's the marketing guy. And changed my life. Totally changed my life. Changed my whole family's life. Was there for 7 years and eventually moved on to be the assistant GM. So I kind of ran the business operations part of it, which was a great education.
Wow.
And, one thing kind of led to another. Trenton State went to Princeton. Princeton went to Rutgers, then went to ESPN radio doing shows from this basement Fell asleep one time doing an overnight show, 2:00 start, fell asleep at 12:30. My producer called my wife and said, "We can't find Tom. He needs to be on the air right now." But I was in this basement, sitting in this room. My wife come down and said, "Hey, you're on the air." I said, "No, I'm not. I've got an hour and a half." And she goes, "No, you fell asleep." So all that stuff, all that stuff was the greatest education. But the Thunder changed my life, Colin. I mean, and it's still a great place. I'm still there all the time. Drive by it like you do. My son hits there in the winter, getting ready for his minor league season. It's a pretty cool place. I'm glad they're able to have a minor league team there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I have such fond memories, and you were able to get in and sit close, and that's where I started to become really a baseball fan. Is the Trenton Thunder. I love the colors, love the team, and again, it was close to home, which was really cool.
Yep.
You talked about your son. We'll finish up with this. You talked about your son a few times. You talk about your family a lot on social media, which I think is super cool. Again, the interaction we talked about, you're letting people into your life. I'm going to turn the game on really to watch the Phillies, sure, but I'm going to listen to Tom. I'm going to follow him on Twitter, interact with him on Twitter, and then see what his family's doing. But you talked about your daughter graduation. Congrats to her. Good luck to her moving forward. And then your son, minor league baseball. Pretty cool.
Yeah. I have one who's our Double-A broadcaster in Lehigh Valley. He's 26. He's got a really bright future. He's got a great head of hair, which I don't. So he does Princeton football and he does St. Joe's basketball. And,
awesome.
He does Lehigh Valley. He's really good.
You did St. Joe's as well, right?
He does St. Joe's too. Yep. He does St. Joe's too.
No, but you did. Didn't you?
I did. Yes, I did St. Joe's. I went from Princeton basketball to St. Joe's basketball. Jameer's, the year they went to the Elite Eight, which was awesome.
Any stories from that?
Oh, that was, when the greatest, I have so many basketball stories, but one of the greatest things about that was, it's little St. Joe's. I mean, we'd go places to play that year, and we had the best player in the country in Jameer Nelson. I mean, then you had Delonte West.
Yeah,
who was like a diamond in the rough. But you had Dwayne Jones and John Bryant and Pat Carroll, who was probably the most unheralded, but could have been one of the better players.
I remember him.
That was, I wasn't going to leave Princeton because I love doing Princeton basketball. And Joe Lenardi, was the one who pushed me to kind of think about doing, and Larry Doherty, now at Temple, think about doing St. Joe's. And that was awesome too, because
I know Larry.
Yeah, that little gym, man, Hawk Hill, that's great. That place was great.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but continue with your son. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. So I have another son who's playing minor league baseball, is chasing a dream.
Do it, man. Do it till the wheels fall off.
Do it till the wheels fall off. And, I don't know how much longer it's going to last. He's 23. And I just want people to know that, there's a chance out there. Take it. Doesn't matter what it is. Be a broadcaster. You could be a doctor, and you can be a baseball player. Just do it for as long as you can do it while you're young, because you're not going to get those opportunities when you're 35 to chase those athletic dreams. And then if it doesn't work out, you move on. Take that canvas, wipe it clean, and start over again.
Yeah, good for him. So where's he at now? Who's he playing for?
Playing for the Gary South Shore Railcats in the American Association. They're in Kansas City right now, Kansas. He's
with the Mets. Is he with the Mets?
No, he was drafted by the Phillies, didn't sign, went to college. Now it's just an independent league team, so he can be signed by anybody. So that's what we're hoping, is that he gets signed by somebody and gets at least a chance to play affiliated baseball. But if not, he's giving it a whirl.
Drafted by the Phillies. I do remember that now. I don't know why I said the Mets. I guess because you did call play for the Mets for a couple of years.
When he was in college, we thought he was going to get drafted by the Mets out of college, and he didn't get drafted, which was kind of a tough day. But you know how hard it is. I mean, you just keep trying to grind, man.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Tom, we really appreciate your time. Best of luck to your family. Best of luck to you the rest of this season. If you happen to call any of our games, let us know. Hopefully we can meet for some Cape May Brew down the shore this summer. That would be fantastic.
I just put some in the fridge, man.
Cape May Brew, one of our sponsors here at Not For Long Media, and we really appreciate them. So, Tom, thank you so much. Safe travels the rest of the season. Go Phils, and we look forward to talking to you.
Yeah, good luck with the wedding too.
Yes, thank you. Really excited.